What's going on, everybody, and welcome to the other side of the Firewall podcast, where we talk about the latest and greatest in cybersecurity news, as well as we highlight those movers and shakers and glass ceiling breakers, those people of color who've made it to the other side of the proverbial firewall. My name is Ryan Williams, and as always, I'm joined by Shannon Tynes.
What's up? What's up?
What's going on? And Chris Abercon's with us all week.
What's going on, everybody?
What's going on, Chris? So, thank you again for tuning in. So, Monday, Tuesday are topics, Wednesday discussion like this one, and then Thursday will be a throwback. So, it'll be something from our almost 500 episodes that we'll go back and through the archive and find something good for the audience. And then Fridays, everything else: movies, books, games, all that good stuff. Without further ado, I'll give it to Shannon.
All right, everybody. So this article comes from federalnewsnetwork.com, written by Justin Doubleday. And the title of this one is CISA hails progress on cyber risk visibility, but lawmakers eye expanded share services. So what they're talking about in this one, right? So CISA has this program where they do no notice penetration testing, right? Across federal agencies, which to me, wow, that's the way to do it, right? Like for us, especially in the military, right? Like we know how the game is played, right? When you know an inspection is coming, all of a sudden, you got to put a little bit more work in. You might be doing 12s, you know what I mean? Like, hey, this is how, like, you're putting forward the front, like, hey, this is how we look all year round, right? That may not necessarily be the case, right? So, but what they're talking about doing here is doing no notice penetration testing and then going back to the agencies and being like, hey, this is what we found. These are your crits. These are your highs. This is what needs to be remedied, which I'm all for, right? Like start doing these types of things to make sure people keep them on their toes, right? Now, I'm all for it, right? But here's where we have a problem here, right? So like, even though this is something that CISA offers and something that they do, there was a not a vote, but they're looking at doing the 2024 budget, and they're talking about doing a 25% decrease in the budget across CISA, right? Like I'm not going to sit here and say CISA is barely staying afloat, but to do a 25% cut, like anybody, it's going to hurt anybody, right? So for these initiatives that they take, and we highlight CISA a lot on this podcast, you know what I mean? Like there's a lot of good things that I believe that they're doing that are helpful to not just federal agencies even, right? Like there's like you can reach out to them for help, not even being a federal agency, and they're down for it. They're down for the cause. But to give them a 25% cut, like that's deep. You know what I mean? Like that's not what we want. Like for us as a nation to go through what we've been going through when it comes to cybersecurity and the different ransomware attacks and things like that. Like I don't want to see people putting gas and plastic trash bags again. You know what I mean? Because we got another colonial pipeline coming up. You know what I mean? Because that's kind of what you're kind of begging for that when you start doing these budget cuts, across the board, like especially for something that's becoming way more prevalent, you know what I mean, when it comes to cybersecurity. Like if you're going to cut from somewhere else, right? Like, and I know it's going to be unpopular. I know we're all former military members, right? But like sometimes the Department of Defense, I mean, we get a bit much, you know what I mean? We get a bit much when it comes to the budget, you know what I mean? And us all having been in, like we know what happens come the end of the fiscal year, right? We know how we played that money game, you know what I'm saying? So I don't know, like cutting money where it doesn't seem to need to be cut. This is where the discussion needs to be, right? Like is there other places, like if you deem it to where there needs to be cut somewhere, when it comes to CISA and cybersecurity, it doesn't seem to be the move, especially in this day and age, especially when we're expanding and putting like cybersecurity in the DoD and things of that nature, right? Like, or not cybersecurity, AI, right? Into like the cybersecurity realm. This is where we need to be devoting more resources, more money, right? Like in the current administration, like they're doing it by investing billions with a B, right? Like Pentagon Wars out here, you know what I'm saying? So like this is what needs to be getting done nowadays. And a 25% cut, like I don't like to see that being what it is going forward. And it's not finalized yet. Like it was a proposal, been voted on and everything, but like everybody has to come together and say, yeah, that's what it's going to be. But 25%, that's steep. But Chris, what's your thoughts on that?
I mean, kind of going back on the 25% cut, it's kind of like businesses out there, right? So, kind of on our previous discussion, I don't think organizations are going to want to spend any money on cybersecurity until it hits them, right? Until it affects their bottom line, right? In this case, I think the government is looking at, hey, where's our taxpayer money well allocated to? Hey, we have roads to fund. We've got, programs for, certain states, highways, things of that nature, right? where are they looking for a way? They're looking for ways to cut the fat, and unfortunately, like cybersecurity is still seen as like a luxury, or still seen as like a it's still a bolt on, right? People we talked in our studies, hey, don't practice bolt on security, right? Unfortunately, we're still at that, right? Especially the government. It's an afterthought when we've got people so operational in their, in their workflow, their battle rhythm integrity, right? They're all about how can we get this done, and they're not necessarily like for cybersecurity professionals. We're talking about, hey, how can we make this journey secure, right? They just care about the journey, right? And unfortunately, sometimes we are seen as, you know, the bad guy, right? We're the no fun police sometimes. Like, you can't be doing that. And maybe that's unfortunately people in Congress, specifically some of these who are um proposing these laws, they're not, a lot of them are, they're lawyers, right? A lot of them don't come from industry, and they're lawmakers, they're career people, right? So they don't have that operational experience. Like, hey, look, this can be really bad if this happens to us. Um
It doesn't
and
affect them that much is the
Ex
thing. It's
exactly,
affect them. Yeah.
exactly. And then my other thoughts kind of on the no notice penetration testing thing. I'm assuming that the agencies would have to sign on to some kind of agreement at first. Hey, you may be subjected to a penetration test within this time frame, right? So I wouldn't say it's necessarily 100% no notice, because let's say if another three agents, let's just say, hey, DHS is going to get hit at randomly without any notice ever, right? They're gonna think it's a, a nation state or some kind of advanced persistent threat coming at them, right? So I thought about that just recently, and it's just it would be interesting, right? But the no notice penetration testing thing, I think, is very cool. It keeps people on their toes, right? And remember, no notice penetration testing is not just on the digital, right? They could deploy teams to conduct social engineering, right? And that's where it can get kind of fun. Like, hey, they can come back and say, oh, they can just walk into the rector's office and it's like, hey guys, I'm part of CISA, and I'm part of the something called the CAT team, and uh I just penetrated your defenses for its physical security, right? Your controls are not working. I just piggybacked off one of your employees, right? And imagine that. So I'm just thinking all these like kind of fun, not necessarily fun for the, you know, that
Right.
organization,
For
but
the
for us,
security officer.
for the security officer, like, you know, and then yeah, I'm thinking about situations like that where it's it'd be fun, right? Then again, though, I think these programs are great, and I think CISA needs to continue doing what they're doing. I think they're definitely more active recently, especially like on LinkedIn, right, where they're putting out these bulletins for industry as well as federal, and that's where I think CISA needs to. I don't think CISA needs to be. I think they need more funding, right? Like really, and two, to hire talent because industry pays more, right? CISA to hire some of these government employees, they're trying to get they need to attract talent, right? And the best way to grow an organization with the right talent. And yeah, it takes some money, right?
To me, it would seem CISA would have an easy case to make here, right? So like we talk
Hmm.
about how for the politicians it doesn't really affect them, right? They're still going to get their gas. They're going to be prioritized if the poop hits the fan. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
They're
yeah.
not going to experience what the average American is going to experience, right? And for CISA, they could easily just walk in and be like, okay, well, do you guys remember the Colonial Pipeline? Do you remember the water plants in Florida? Do you remember JBS?
Hmm.
People not being able to get food? Like they could just rattle off all these things and be like, no, this doesn't affect your constituents, right? Like the people that voted you in here, right? They can vote you out. Well, you hope they can vote you out. Sometimes it just, if you just got certain letters after your name, they're just gonna vote for you. It's whatever. But
Hmm.
um it seems like an easy case to make for me. But again, because we're all into IT and cybersecurity, like we know of these things and we know what goes into it, right? So for us,
Yeah.
this is an easy call, guys. Like I don't know how, guys and gals, I don't know how we're gonna cut funding for this by 25%, like a quarter of it. You know what I mean? Like that is huge.
Right. I think it's just like any other time where it's that's the highest they would like to cut. I think it's going to come, well, hopefully woefully lower than that. Hopefully maybe 10 or less. But yeah, you both are right. Like if you're going to cut from anybody, I don't think those are that's not the best organization to do those cuts. Only because of it's only going to get worse. So if it, like Chris said, you just have to give it more funding. But at the same time, it feels inexhaustible, right? Like it just you keep feeding money into these organizations, not just CISA, because I like CISA, but just in general, trying to prop up the private sector, right? Because that's who's utilizing. So like government agencies are utilizing CISA as well, but like local government, federal government, all need CISA, but private industry also has the ability to use them as a crutch. So I'm not going to pay, X amount of dollars to do it myself to build this department within my own organization when I can leverage CISA's know-how, which is completely free, right? Like, so if you want to do a tabletop, go to CISA. If you want to do some work on your business continuity plans or risk assessments, you can always just go to CISA if you wanted to. It might be a little bit, they may have a backlog depending on your state or your local, how frequently they're used within your local governments. But they're always a resource you can leverage to get free services from, where you don't have to pay somebody to be there to do it for you. And that may be who's using up a lot of the resources, and causing the budget to seem inflated, so to speak. But like so one of you said, I think it was Shannon, about the roads. No, it was Abacon. It was Chris. I'm sorry, military.
All
About the
good.
roads and things of that nature, right? Like when the Colonial Pipeline thing happened, it wasn't because a bridge collapsed or a road was destroyed or eroded or there's bad weather. It was simply a phishing campaign or a social networking attack, like things that could be forwarded by having good cyber hygiene, by having people can hopefully help you quickly recover your business continuity, or your instant response, right? It wasn't a road. So I think the money should be there, just like you two were saying, like that should be the case, to help get them where they need to be. And CISA's still hiring, so I don't even know if CISA is. I'm sure they're prioritizing like where
Yeah.
this cut's gonna happen or whatever. But I see them all the time on LinkedIn, still pulling people in, still advertising their services, still trying to get more people in the pipeline. Because like you said, like they're paying a lot more probably outside of CISA, so you have to get people in, right? It's probably a constant recruiting process because people are bouncing out to the private sector, would be my assumption as well. So you need to not only fill the positions you currently have, but then you have to keep the pipeline open to get people into the seats as people bounce out to better prospects. So hopefully the cuts don't hit them as hard as we're thinking, and then CIS can keep doing this thing, and it shouldn't be a bipartisan thing. So like when I read into the article, I didn't really see where it was coming from. Like maybe it's all of Congress is like, hey, this is too expensive. But if it's coming down to party lines, because it was propped up by a certain administration or whatever, then that's just not helpful for anybody, because these politicians might not care about uh, accessing resources themselves, but again, their constituents will be hit by the next JBS or the next, I think it was Oldsmar water plant that was being attacked. So we'll see. We'll see what the future holds. But please continue to tune in throughout the week. So again, Shannon and Chris will be here all week to discuss all of the good cybersecurity stuff. Thursday will be a throwback Thursday. Not exactly sure which one I'm going to put up. And then Friday, everything else. So movies, books, games, all that good stuff. So if you listen to us in the proper order, or I don't care how you listen to us, as long as you listen to us. Monday, Tuesday are topics. Wednesday discussion. Thursday's throwback. Fridays everything else. Movies, books, games, all that good stuff. So please hit us up by the socials that go by our name. Give me a person. I'm at RyRy Security Guy. That's RYRY Security Guy. You can find me on LinkedIn, Clubhouse, Threads, and Twitter. And where can they find you, Chris?
You can find me on LinkedIn under Chris Abacon. Last name is spelled A Bacon.
There it is. Stay safe, stay secure.